If you haven't taken the time to read this question yet, pause the video and read the entire question. Parts A and parts B and part C, and then play the video again. I think you'll understand a whole lot more what I'm talking about. So in part A, a claim has been made that the mean length of the fish is 8 inches. So you're trying to decide which of these events is more likely. Now, you don't have to calculate the probability or the likelihood. Your job is just to explain which is more likely. And what's different between these two scenarios is the number of fish. So in the first scenario, we have a sample of size 15. In this scenario, we have a sample of size 50. So either way, the claim is that the mean is 8. We're interested in the likelihood of fish of having a mean length where the mean length is more than 10 inches. So the difference between 15 and 50, those sample sizes are going to affect the standard deviation of the sampling distribution. So remember, the sampling distribution for a sample mean, in this case, because the population is approximately normal, we know that our sample means are going to be distributed about normally. We know that the mean is, the claim at least, is that the mean is 8 inches. But you don't know the population standard deviation. So we have that standard deviation over the square root of the sample size. So again, you are not able to actually calculate the likelihoods. This answer should be about explaining how the difference in the standard deviation between this situation, this sample size, and this sample size, how that will affect the standard deviation, and how that standard deviation then is going to affect the likelihoods. So make a choice. In your answer, you need to choose either the sample of size 15 or the sample of size 50, and then you need to justify using the standard deviation why, with your chosen sample size, a mean length greater than 10 inches is more likely. So in part B of the question, here now you're given a standard deviation. So if the sample size is 50, now notice there's a little bit of a trick here, and it's meant to make your life easier, but many students misunderstood this. So suppose the standard deviation of the sampling distribution, the standard deviation is 0.3 inches. So understand, they're telling you this. They're telling you that if you take the population standard deviation and divide by the square root of 50, they're telling you that the standard deviation of the sampling distribution, they're telling you this value here. It's 0.3. A lot of students, when they did this question on the AP exam, thought they had to take 0.3 and divide that by the square root of 50. But that's not what this says. They're telling you the standard deviation of the sampling distribution. So they're telling you this entire expression. So in part B then, your job is to explain or to indicate the probability, use the normal distribution to find the probability that a random sample of 50 fish will have a mean length, a mean that is less than 7.5 inches. So this shouldn't be a particularly difficult question. You're going to make a z-score. You can either use the shade norm or the normal CDF command. What made the question difficult was this right here. You are already given the population standard deviation. That's meant to make the question easier for you. You don't have to divide that by the square root of 50. So then the last part of the question, let's say that the fish lengths in the lake was not normal. So notice in the stem of the question, in the backstory of the question, they're telling you that the lengths of the fish are approximately normal. Well, let's say that you didn't know that. So instead down here, let's say that instead we didn't know what the distribution shape looked like. Let's say that it wasn't normal, but it has the same mean and it has the same standard deviation. Could you still use the normal distribution to compute the probability that you did in part B? So again, this is a yes or no question. Make sure you answer yes or no and then justify it. Your justification here does not have to be long and complicated, but you should be specific. So in part C, what you are doing is describing why the conditions are met in order to use the normal distribution, even though the population's length, the lengths of the fish in the population, aren't necessarily normal.